Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Excel Snippet. Excel weekend videos on video series 3.2, Excel Power Query and Power Pivot series. In today's logic or in our today's video, we are about to learn how we used Excel and then how we are using now, how we are going to use it in the future. If you want to add a larger data, or if you want to add a data which is beyond Excel capacity, then you have to put them in 3 different sheets, and then you will never have a chance of combining it, because combining will never give you the results that you are looking for. Neither you can combine in a normal Excel table format. So this is where our new logic of Power Query and Power Pivot comes into play. So what is our today's scenario here and how it's going to be used? So let's see how to do that. In today's scenario, I have a population table of all our countries, and there is a real table or the real population numbers available for the first table, and the rest of the two tables are assumptions. Based on the current growth pattern, the data has been gone through and we came to a number one, or we came to a situation where we understand that this is the population by the year end. The company given you the data for you, and they want the following informations to be added to a list. So the company asks you to build a data like this, but what they gave you is they gave you a 3 CSV file to achieve this. Let us see how these files are there. So we are about to do data preparation in Excel using Power Query editor, and then once we have done, we are going to load them to our data model. And once the data is loaded to the data model, and then we will be creating a chart in Excel. Generally, we do this and we call this as visualization or vision analytical tools like Power BI Desktop and Tableau and a lot of other software. You don't have to go to that data. You do have that facility in Excel itself. We are about to do an analysis in Excel itself using the logic Power Pivot and Power Query. So let's see how to do that. So let's jump into the ocean of query and pivot. The logic of this data is we are not going to bring any of these data into our system, but we are about to bring the data into our logics and see how it's going to work. So my end file will be like this. So I'll just cut this and I'll add it to my list here, but I'm going to do it again. This is the data that I have here, and the size of the data is around 20 MB. And when I put all these data together and show you, this is going to be a large data for us. So if you see this data, this is going to be a huge data. We have around 35 MB of data. But when I combine them and I create a report out of it using a Power Query and Power Pivot, I'm going to bring the size of the data to far less. But again, I didn't use the entire options yet. In our subsequent video, I'll show you how to reduce this size 26 MB even further down. So Power Query and Power Pivot not only allows you to add a larger data to our list, it is also allows you to keep your Excel size as small as possible. Again, I didn't use the entire options in this particular file, but when we are going to use such a scenario, so how do I handle that? That we will see once we finish our creation. So in the creation part, my size of the data is going to be similar to this, around 27 MB out of 35 MB. But later on, how I'm going to make them even more effective and even more lighter, so that that can be shared in a normal mail. You don't want to have a drive to share the details. Let's see how to do that. So I'm going to take these data one by one. I can take them all in one shot, but for correction purpose and for data preparation purpose, I'm taking it one by one, so that allows me to make my work even better. I'll show you how to do them combined component also. So let's jump back to the world, and I'm going to go back to my data, and I'm going to bring in the data one by one. I'm bringing in a CSV file, so I can either use this as an option, or I can use the from file option to pull this. So I'm going to use the one which is on top available for me from CSV file. Then it automatically goes to the list. Now I have this folder in my desktop called population folder, and I'm going to take the first data and import it. Once I import the data, I'm going to make the data corrections immediately and then clear them all and then load that data to our model. So first of all, I need to clean the data. So to do that, I'm going to use transform data. So that allows you to clean the data from top to bottom. And once I clean the data, I'm going to match the data with the report given to me by the management. So this is the report that they want to build out of it. And let's see how to do that. So now I have around 9 columns of data, column 1 to column 9. But I'm in requirement with only 6 of them. So let's see what are the unwanted data that we have here. So first and foremost part, I'm going to remove the first line. It's not worthy for me, so I'm going to go to the remove row, and I'm going to use the option called remove top row. This allows you to remove a top row of data to any number of rows. I'm going to use only one, so I'm going to just remove the first line alone. Then I want to bring the heading to the first headers. I don't want them as a record. To do that, I'm going to press use first row as headers. Then automatically you can see that the data has jumped. Now I'm going to rename the headers because the name given to me in this list is far different from the name available here, but the data are similar to it. So I'm going to add the first 4 column of it, called country ID, country, year, and age group. I'm going to come down in here. I'm going to just say country ID, country, year, and then age group. But the 5th and the 6th column is a column which is not given in my the 6th column. 5th column is given to me is gender. 6th column is given to me as population, but they have given me an age group start and an age group span, and they gave a population male and female separately and a total population. I'm interested in going to know the male and female population by breakup, and I don't need any of these columns. So how do I remove that? So I can either remove it by selecting all of them and go to the remove column, or I can use a choose column option. When I go to choose column option, I can uncheck whatever the data that I don't need. Then you can see all of them are disappeared. But again, I have one more dimension here. You can see that it is saying gender and population, but I have genders in 2 different columns. Now I want to swap the data, which is in 2 different columns, into 1 dimension. So to swap the column, I'm going to just select these 2 columns, or whichever column that I want to swap, go back to a transform and click unpivot column. This swaps the data, and you can see that the gender comes in one place and the number comes in the other one. That sounds good. Now I'm going to just say gender, and sorry, I'm spelling it wrongly, forgive me, and I'm going to just create population. Here we go. I think that my data is ready on the look, but let me check whether I have a blank or any unwanted data here. So to do that, I'm going to just take up the data, and which is easier. So first I'm going to click this and go down to this list. So it's going to show me a year from 1950 to 1999 without a problem. If I have any blank in between, it may show it at last. I didn't see any bug in it. That's nice. Now I want to see what is there in the age group point. But unfortunately, when I add an age group here, you can see that I have a date in between. But again, I'm sorry. I have a data which is 2-dimensional here. You can see that it is like a discrete series of statistical data where I have a 0 on the front and it goes until 4. And I have all of a sudden I'm seeing a date in between. Probably there is an error in my data part. So let me just replace this date. In the olden ways, we do find and replace. We'll say copy the column and then find button, Control F, paste that in the find, go down to the replace, feed the value of the replace, and do it. In the Power Query editor or in the Power BI, or power pivot, you don't able to copy a cell here because it's a data model here. So what you can do is you can just click this, and when I click the replace value in the list, automatically it finds the value for you. You don't want to do the copy paste like we do in the older days. Once we have this makes my job easier. I'm going to say 5-9, give an enter. That changes the list. So I want to do that for the next date. Replace value, it's 14 and 10. I'm going to say 10-14. Now I want to just look at the data. Is my data all are in a similar pattern where I have a lower bond, a lower value, an upper value, and so on. If you go down and see this, I have 100 plus here in between, and the rest of them are nice, perfect. And when I scroll down, see one more 80 plus is coming. I don't want 80 plus and 80 and hyphen 84, so I wish to put them on one. So I'm going to change this 80 plus into 80 hyphen 84, and to make the data look similar, I'm going to make 100 plus into 100 hyphen 100. You don't have to do that, but for the sake of data preparation, for the sake of data neatness, so I'm trying to do that. So here I can either find these data and then replace it. If you couldn't able to find, because I'm adding a bigger data here, so you don't want to worry about it, just know what is the data that you're going to replace it. So just type that data and then set them to the respective list, and type the data and then send them to the respective list. So now all my operations or all my changes would have happened. You can see on the right hand side of the screen whatever changes that I do to the data are all recorded as an applied steps. Now I go back to this point and see whether there is any singular value in my list. And you can see you will be having two values, lower bound, upper bound, except 100-100. The rest of them will have a lower value and a higher value. Perfect. I can leave this male and female or pop male and pop female as it is, but I feel that looks a little odd, so I'm going to just make it as pop male as male and pop female as female. I think now my data is ready, so let me load this data. This data is a small data. I can add them in an Excel sheet itself, but I want to give you an idea about how the data model is going to work, so I'm going to just load them to my data model. So I'm going to go back to my close and load. I'm going to say close and load 2. Instead of selecting a sheet, or it's going to ask you a question, would you like to add a sheet or what? I'm going to keep this as a connection, and then I'm going to add this to data model and give an OK. Automatically on the right hand side screen, you can see that you get a pop-up here, and in the pop-up, it shows you the data that we are bringing inside the list. This is the connections that we have done earlier, so all my connections are shown in here. So let me just show our data also below so that you can see our data very clearly. This data is going to take a little more time than normal to get in, and you will see the number of rows that I have added to the data model using this data structure. So let me just drag down. Now you can see that I have added this one data. So let me just minimize the others so that I can see all the data that I'm going to add here. The other query that I have here, you can see that I've added the first logic of population country 1950-1999. 3.57 lakhs of rows are added. So let me just keep it as it is, or you can, if you want, you can close it. You can bring it back if you wanted to. Then I'm going back to my next file, and I'm going to do the same logic again. Wherever we have an unwanted row, remove it. Wherever we have an unwanted column, remove it. And then if you have any bugs in it, remove all of them. So now we got the list. So my headers are perfect, but again the names are not perfect. So remember, please use the headers correctly, because even a wrong spelling, even the wrong casing will give you extra column for your data. So don't ever, when you merge it, your headers are all has to be similar and same. You cannot have a different data together. Now I don't need the 1, 2, and then 3. So I'm going to just remove columns. I've selected and remove it. And then I'm going to choose these two columns and go back to the transform and unpivot column, then rename them as gender. Remember, even a spelling or even the casings are be calculated here, so it's better to have all of them similar. And there is a lot of not applicable in here, so I'm going to just remove that out of the list and then give an OK. Now all my not applicables are done. Then I'm going to just change the dates that I have as an error here. And then let me see whether I have an 80 plus here. Definitely you will have, because that's how data works here. Okay, I don't have an 80 plus here. That sounds good, but I have 100 plus here. So let me just change this 100 plus alone. And now my data are all changed. Data looks one-dimensional component right now. Yes, we have it. Now I wish to change them. Perfect. Now I'm going to just close and load to them and add them as a separate list. So when I use the close and load here, I'm going to just say data only, data point. When I give an OK, you can see that the next file is adding up to our list. Earlier I had a lot of drop downs, so I couldn't be able to see them. Now I can see the data that I'm going to add. So total number of float items that I'm adding is 4.22 lakhs of those. So I'm already touching 8 lakhs, 700 or 8 lakhs nearly. So if I had the next point, let's see how much of data that's going to come into play. So the next data is here. I'm importing it, and I'm going to do the transformation here. And now I'd like to see the data, whether it is all loading correctly. Now you can see that there is a bug at the last line. It says that there is an error in it. So I'm going to go from the scratch. So I'm going to just reverse this applied steps here so that I can come back to the first line of data. And now I'm going to just click this and load them. You can see a blank comes here. That's why we are going to load the earlier data. So now I'm going to uncheck these. Even OK. Now I think that my data are perfect. Then I'm going to just use the first row as column headers. And I jumped in there. Perfect. Yeah. Now I'm going to just choose the column that I don't want. And rename the columns now. I'm doing it the other way around, so forgive me. So I should have done it in the same pattern like I did it earlier. But I'm just going with the flow of the transactions here. Now I'm going to just select these two, go to the transform, unpivot them, and change. Oops, I'm a very bad speller. Forgive me about that. So now I got my list perfect, and let me do the replacement point of the data. So all the changes that I did in the first file, I'm just repeating in the other two files. So now my data are ready. So now I'm going to just load them to my list. So my next data is getting ready. Correction, and then add them. So now I got my data. Now the data are going. Oh my goodness, it's crossed the limit. You can see that it is 4.3 lakhs of data that is there. When I combine them together, it's going to touch 12 lakhs. The maximum row item that I have in my list is only 10,48,576. Now I want to create a report on combining all these data. So to do that, I'm going to go back to the get data, and in the get data point, I'm going to merge the data into a list. So I'm going to just come back to the combine query, and I'm going to use append the data. Then it automatically jumps to the Power Query editor for me, and it says that what do you want to do? I want to add all these three data. So I'm going to just add these three data only. I have a lot of data shown here in my table, but I'm interested only appending these three data. So when I give an OK, now it jumps to the Power Query editor and it shows you one more point, and I have a lots of query on my left. So if I don't want, let me just remove this. So I have a lot of list here. So when I try to remove it, it is not allowing me to do that. It says something. Query sample cannot be deleted while being referenced in another table. Okay, never mind. Okay, so I'm going to delete these data alone so that I don't have any additional data to work around. So now I have my data alone in my list. Now I want to rename this data, so I'm going to call this as operation combined. And if your data are not proper, you can correct them also here. So I'm going to correct that each and every data. So select all the data that I have here, and I'm going to go to transform and ask the data to detect the data type by itself. So the data is detected correctly. Now I'll go and load all these data to my data model again. So now all my data are added to my data model. So you can see it is going to combine it and it's going to show you 1.2 million line items of data. So the total row combined together is 1.210422 row items, or I can call it as 12,10,422 rows. So now where do I find this data? So I just combined it, added to my data model. Where do I find it? This is where I will either use the data tab where I go to the manage data model, or I'll go to the Power Pivot and click the same manage data model part. When I click this, it automatically takes the data to the list, and you can see that list very clearly here. It will take a little more time than normal. Forgive me because my data is taking its sweet own time to add. So now you can see at the bottom I have all the three files that I've added, and I have the combined file also comes in place here. So this will take a little more time because my RAM is a little slower, so I'm sorry for that. That gives you a much slower data than what we actually expect. So now I'm going to just try to add one more dimension here. I'm going to give a right click here. I don't want this to be visible in my list. I'm going to say hide from client tools. So you can see that my data are hidden, and I'm going to give a right click again and then see what I can do with it. Right click. I'm hiding the data as one by one, which I don't really want to show them in the list. And I want to show this alone. And I'm going to create a pivot table here. So let me create a pivot table and a chart, or I can create a pivot chart directly. When I click this, automatically takes you to a brand new data. Ask you, would you like to put it in the same sheet or some other sheet? I'm going to tell the system, put it in the existing sheet, probably in here. Select this option, show this. All right, let's move this, show A1. Then I can just say, please go ahead with this new Excel sheet. It automatically adds a brand new sheet for me, and there it will show you the pivot chart for me. So my pivot chart is already ready here, and you can see the tools for the pivot chart should automatically come on the right. If the system doesn't give you that, you don't have to worry about that. Just come back to the tool here, give a right click, and then go to the show field tab. That adds your pivot table here. So I have, now you can see that I had 3 different files earlier. Remember, I had 3 different files. When I loaded it in my Power Pivot window, I said that don't show them to the client tools. I just gave a right click and then I hide the client the data from this, and I can see only the final data here, not all the data. I'm going to see the country wise population here. So the data automatically shows the country wise population here, but I don't want all of them because this is going to be a huge data. I have 200 countries here to see it. Now I want to filter the top 10 country alone, so I'm going to go back to the country and I'm going to say more sort option, descending order, and country by population, and okay. So it shows the descending order data, and I am going to just make the filter right now and tell the system that please give the top 10 country alone. So now it gives you the top 10 country. If you want the numbers to be on top, just come down here, add the data label to it. The data label is too bigger for you or odd for you, you can change them. Give a right click here, go to the format data label, and change the data label from general tab to the number tab. So I'm going to go back to the number, it's in general, so I'm going to convert this into a numerical value. So select the drop down, select the number, automatically it gives you the 2 decimal portion, and the values will change here. And what I want is, I don't want the numbers to be shown in a bigger way. It shows you millions of numbers here, so I want to make it in millions here. So give a right click here, then go back to the format axis, and I want to change the decimal units to millions here, so that you can see 191 millions of people out there in each and every country. By 2100, India will become number 1 in the total world population. So now I'm going to say total population by 2100 for top 10 countries. So now I got my list of data. So my projections has given me an idea that what will be the top 10 countries in the world which will have a huge population by the end of 2100. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something new in here, and that this is Excel snippet, Power Pivot video series 3.0, and this is we have created a Power Pivot. We have moved the data to data model, unchecked or released those we don't want to see because I brought them from 3 different files. When I work with the ultimate chart, I saw only the combined table, not all the raw data that I've added in our list. Hope you enjoy the video. This might be a little longer video. Please go through it completely. You will get a complete idea how this data works. Hope you enjoy the video. This is Vinod signing up from Excel Snippet, video series number 3, video number 2 on Power Query and Power Pivot series 3.2. Thank you.